I've played a lot of games on the Nintendo 64, some I've loved and some that I've absolutely hated. As of 2023, I've beaten 41 out of the 393 games in the Nintendo 64 library, and today I'm going to talk about some games that you should take the time to check out on the system. Please note, these games are not in any particular order, and yes, I am well aware there are plenty of amazing games on the Nintendo 64. Be it Jet Force Gemini, be it F-Zero, be it Super Mario 64, trust me, we'll get to them when we get to them. But right now, these are just simply 10 games that made me get the warm and fuzzies in spots that I definitely shouldn't get them. Let's begin. Some of you who enjoy my content might remember the game that kickstarted Zelda for you, be it Legend of Zelda or Zelda 2: Adventure of Link. For me, it was Ocarina of Time. Sometimes I get upset hearing how many people dislike Ocarina of Time, because for me, it's the golden standard on the Nintendo 64. I do equally understand how some folks might be frustrated with the Nintendo 64 at a system level, because honestly, if Nintendo didn't make the game, then most of the time the games were kind of jank. That wasn't the case with Ocarina. To me, Ocarina was my rite of passage, my train ride into who I am today. It was the first game that I ever played that was my own, opened straight from the box in Christmas of 1998, alongside Banjo-Kazooie, Mario Kart 64, and Super Mario 64. That day is one that lives in my mind permanently, and I'm sure you've got memories like that for yourself, moments where you can remember the sights, the smells, and even the temperature of the house you lived in. It's a beautiful memory because it was from a time where life was just a little bit easier to live. I'm sure all of you know Ocarina of Time, but if you don't, you play as Link, who was woken up by Navi the Fairy on request from the Great Deku Tree to embark on a legendary quest to rid Hyrule of the evil pig boy Ganondorf. Or Ganondorf, I don't know, it's probably Ganondorf. For me, this game has amazing music, a great atmosphere. Seeing that I own 3 different copies of this game, I think it's fair to say this is one of my personal favorite games ever. And yes, I wear those retro goggles proudly. We can't mention Ocarina of Time and leave out the big brother of Ocarina of Time on the Nintendo 64, Majora's Mask. I remember being in the 5th grade and checking the catalog from Walmart, remember, last page, all the way in the back, and seeing the box art for Majora's Mask for the first time. It was the perfect Christmas gift. I was given the game by my grandparents and I proceeded to get fucking bodied by it for 3 years before it started collecting dust. It was not until I was an adult that I actually beat it. As a kid, Majora's Mask was just another game that reused assets that I was familiar with a story that I didn't quite understand, and with a 3-day time gimmick that made me want to slam my head in a car door. But as an adult, I understood the entire mood of the game. I understood that this entire game represents the stages of grief. Since being a kid, my heart has hardened. I've been exposed to death, sadness, depression, and more, being in the military, and in some way, I find solace in understanding what this story was trying to represent. Majora's Mask is a fun game. Frustrating? Yes, but fun nonetheless. It was a major expansion of what Ocarina could have been, and it's worth your time and patience. The most recent game was Tears of the Kingdom, and while it is a heavy departure from the traditional Zelda format, I do look forward to checking it out. Goemon is a major franchise from Konami, based on a folklore legend. Ishikawa Goemon was an outlaw hero that stole gold, gave it to the poor. In some ways, he was the Japanese Robin Hood. Think of him like that. But apparently he wasn't really good at being a mystical ninja because he got caught, and then they boiled him in a pot with his son. Yeah, dark stuff, right? Well, Konami took that story and generated a cutesy line of games stemming all the way back from 1986 with Mr. Goemon, the initial entry in the Ganbare Goemon series. Konami couldn't figure out what formula they wanted to go with Goemon. Sometimes you'll see that these games are side-scrollers, sometimes they're like side-profile exploration games, and it wasn't until the 13th game in the franchise that we were exposed to Mystical Ninja starring Goemon. This title is an action-adventure game, it has some dungeons, lovable characters, and Impact the Robot. That's all I'll say. That song lives rent-free in my mind. The ability to change characters to suit your needs, the environments being rendered in great detail for the Nintendo 64, and the music alone make this game worth playing to me. I remember renting it from Blockbuster in the early 2000s, and I fell in love with it, and I feel that you might as well. The most recent game was Ganbare Goemon, Tokai Dochu Oedo, Tunguri Kaishi no Maki. For the longest time, the only fighting games I ever played were Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo or Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. Sure, there's tons out there, Darkstalkers, Guilty Gear, Tekken, Virtua Fighter, Fighting Vipers, but I was pretty much hard set on the SNES and Genesis at the time because I would go to my cousin's house to play these games. When Super Smash Bros. Dropped in 1999, my mind exploded. I could play as Mario, beating the fuck out of Kirby while I watched Captain Falcon deliver a nuclear-powered punch to Link, who just finished hook-shotting Donkey Kong, while Fox McCloud is blasting his laser pistol straight to Pikachu's face, while Jigglypuff was making Samus fall asleep. This game was phenomenal. It was the ultimate crossover of crossovers and paved the way for a long lineage of fantastic games. I still remember fighting Master Hand the first time, and I remember wondering who those shadowy figures were in the opening sequence. This game is fun, and if you want to have fun with your kids, whip this one out. You won't be disappointed. The most recent game was Smash Ultimate. It is a masterpiece. You remember when arcades used to have racing games that were actually fun? I do. That's why when I saw Cruis'n the World had a Nintendo 64 release, I had to have it. Dad even got me the steering wheel, and while the game wasn't that immersive in the driving department, I felt like everyone wanted to come to my house to check this out because I had Cruis'n at home. Cruis'n the World is massively better than its predecessor, Cruis'n USA, and I don't know, it's just good, clean racing fun, and it's fairly loyal to the arcade game itself. I still keep my dad's Ghost Data untouched to have a memory of him. He passed away 2 years ago. The Cruis'n series has been relatively quiet lately. Raw Thrills is in charge of it, and they did release Cruis'n Blast in 2017, but even then it's just Dave & Buster bullshit. It was released on the Switch though, and I'm far more likely to check that one out. On the topic of racing games, and more specifically racing games that featured crossovers with characters that I knew and loved from, the Mario franchise, Mario Kart 64 was everything that I hoped for. As a kart racer behaving as a sequel to Super Mario Kart on the Super Nintendo, which I hate, yes, I feel it sucks, sue me. I was excited to race with my friends and family and blast them with a red shell, or even send that fateful blue shell to take out my sister who was annihilating me. The replayability for this game was massive, and the battle mode in the game added extra layers of fun to a game that was already fun. Mario Kart is still thriving to this day, but the most recent game was this nonsensical mixed reality game that was basically fan service to celebrate the 35th anniversary of the Mario franchise. Mario Kart Live Home Circuit. It's stinky. Don't buy it. I think we all remember our first skating game. For some, it might be 720, for others, it might be Skate or Die, but for me, it was Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. Not only did this game introduce me to Tony Hawk and the world of skateboarding, but it also introduced me to ska music, which dominated my LimeWire download queue for far more years than I'm willing to admit. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was a fluid masterpiece of a game that let you simply try again to nail that awesome trick, and to me it was a lot like real life skateboarding, failing multiple times, and then you finally nail it and you're good. You keep trying, get that trick fired off, and when you do it, you move on. Tony Hawk's franchise has been neglected through the years, likely a product of whoever owns the IP, but we did have a good, solid, remastered re-release of Tony Hawk's 1 and 2 in 2020, and from what I've seen, it's pretty good. One of the most interesting companies on the Nintendo 64 to me was Rare. They were responsible for Donkey Kong 64, Diddy Kong Racing, and the game that introduced me to them was Banjo-Kazooie. Banjo was an action-adventure game where you play as Banjo with his Breegull companion Kazooie in a hunt to find your sister, who was kidnapped by Gruntilda because she wants to look good for Hot Witch Summer. Along the way, you're assisted by Mumbo Jumbo and Bottles the Mole, who help you get Jiggies that are needed to unlock these subworlds. Now, as a kid, I did not like this game because the overworld was very frustrating to navigate around, especially in the end game, but as an adult, I actually quite enjoyed it. Grant Kirkhope did a fantastic job with the soundtrack, and the world that Rare created is unique and fun. Unfortunately, we haven't seen any Banjo games in a long time. The most recent one was Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, and it's infamous for being a total departure from the franchise. Thanks, Microsoft. For years, I saw Sin and Punishment on the Virtual Console, and I wanted to try it, but I was afraid I couldn't enjoy it because it was in Japanese. As an adult, I bought it and decided to give it a try. And let me tell you, this game is an absolute fever dream. The story is insane, the music is awesome, and the action is unparalleled. Sin and Punishment is a rail shooter, but there's elements of run and gun. It's also incredibly difficult, but damn is it fun. I went into playing this without any expectations, and it was my first game I played by Treasure. Treasure also made Gunstar Heroes and Mischief Makers for anyone who cares. Sin and Punishment does have a sequel called Star Successor in 2009, but I haven't checked it out. Maybe one day I will. It goes without saying, this was the party game on the console, and for the most part, one of the best party games ever because it set the framework for every single other game in the genre that would ever come out. Imitated but never replicated by anyone other than Nintendo, Mario Party was good, clean fun with your friends and family. The first game has a few different boards, each with their own little gimmicks, characters that we love, and a minigame island that is fun to check out solo. It also has a minigame competition. I have not played the sequel yet, because I want to play it on my Twitch stream with my friends, but I did play this with my kids, and I saw the same joy in their eyes that I saw whenever I was a kid. That's a magical thing. Mario Party 1 stood the test of time, and Nintendo continues to release amazing games in this franchise to this day, with the most recent being Mario Party Superstars, which, in my opinion, is not really as fun, but hey, what can you do? And that's a very small representation of some of the amazing games on the system. As I continue my retro gaming journey, I'm going to encounter more, and when I do, I'll share them with you. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and down in the comment section below. Give me some of your favorite video gaming memories. I love hearing those, and I do respond to every single comment, so feel free to take the time to do that. As always, from my family to your family, good energy, good vibes, Fortifier out.